I am a firm believer that our industry will be led by these young people because we're still at really stages of ramp up. And they have agility, intelligence, and they get the passion by going on shifts to say, hey, I might want to become an engineer that's focused in the software, or I'm a finance person.
Hello and welcome to the Solar Maverick podcast, where solar meets entrepreneurship and experience. I'm your host, Benoy Thanjan, so let's get into it.
Hi, this is Benoy, your host of the Solar Maverick podcast. I'm really excited to talk about a great organization that we've had on the podcast previously. It's called Let's Share the Sun. I'm here with Bernadette or Bernie Jordan and Bill Jordan, who are basically the founders and starters of the Let's Share the Sun Foundation. Can you both talk about your roles in the organization and talk about Let's Share the Sun? I know we talked about it on a prior podcast, but I think it'd be helpful if people didn't listen to that episode.
So, Bill Jordan, I'm a co-founder with my wife, Nancy Jordan, of the foundation, and actually on the board as the board president. But the real leadership of the organization is in the hands of Bernadette.
And Bernadette's the executive director of the organization. Can you talk in more detail about Let's Share the Sun and what got you interested in it?
Yes, certainly. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. It's a great organization. I'm glad that you've gotten me involved in it, and you both are doing in the team great work. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, so to give a little background on Let's Share the Sun, we were founded about 12 years ago, and we decided to start work in Haiti after the earthquake. So I went on my first install when I was in high school, actually.
Wow.
Which was about summer before my senior year of high school, 2012. And in Haiti, we installed mostly on schools and orphanages in places that don't have electricity at all. So we've done about a dozen installations in Haiti. And then after Hurricane Maria, decided to do work in Puerto Rico. So our main focus right now is Puerto Rico. So last year, I know the previous podcast, Bill and John Rand talked a little bit about our installs last March, where we focused a lot on people with medical needs. So 200 families applied in Touche, Puerto Rico, which is a small rural town, probably 2 hours outside of San Juan. And of those 200 families, we converted it down to 10 people with the most need. So we did those installations last year. And then I'm not going to talk about our projects this year.
Yeah, and we have a great partnership with a 4-year-old grassroots organization called Casa Pueblo, and they have had an environmental focus since day one, or was 40 plus years. I think after Hurricane Maria, their focus was to turn the whole town into a Pueblo Solar, all run on solar power. People, as most know, were hour flow a year. And they had hour because they had some solar on their main building. So strategically, we thought this would be high impact. To take a town that was 22,000 people before Hurricane Maria, it's dropped off to 17,000. So that was a reflection of the economic impact of Maria on the island to be one of what more rural towns, but I think it's dropped there. And they want to go all solar. So what are we doing now? We did for 10 homes. All 10 made it through Hurricane Maria with power when all of their neighbors were out of color for at least 10 days. And we said, let's take a concentrated community within the town with us that's poorer than average and focus there. And so our focus is on 39 homes. And we're doing one concentrated town. And 10 of them are already been built. We have our local solar installation partner that is part of the economic development vision of Let's Share the Sun. With these 39 homes, the bar was 25 homes, but there was so much interest that the directors were like, Casa Pueblo said, let's do 39. So that's why part of this podcast conversation is we said, sure, but we've got to get all our funds together and done a decent job, but they raised the bar on us, so we do have some needs that we hope to talk about. And then we're also expanding into Maybury Quasi with commitment together with the Kensley, one of our partners, that who Safe House for domestic violence organization. That's leading to ready projector to do all of the domestic violence houses that had used on the island, which are several beyond this initial one in Quasi. So we have 39 homes, but it's sort of a community that wants to do all of their homes and all of their business. They're on grid, the microgrid, that same week that we're going to be in March, that we should get plaza full of people just the solar part.
Yeah, that's amazing work. And point, it's not just solar, it's microgrids, it's also storage. So basically to provide resiliency independent of the grid, especially with people who have healthcare needs that need electricity 24/7. Is that correct?
I visited the families in January, and they were hugely grateful. They said all of our neighbors lost their car. We thought our whole roof would fly out.
Yeah.
It's the panels, but with the battery storage up here, it's just we never lost power. So that means that oxidator machines, dialysis machines, they never lost power in the time when all the neighbors were without power. 10 days is not as long as the full year that they experienced 5 or 6 years ago with Maria. But, I think people are seeing solar as a primary solution.
That's great. That's amazing to hear what you're doing. And can you talk about like the trip that's coming up? I know you talked about it a little bit, but how is that structured? I know it's from March 11th to March 18th. Then there's also a partnership with I think Reneu Energy group, and they're attending March 12th. I will be there as well. In our company, we're excited to be a part of it. And we appreciate John Moran for making the introduction to Let's Share the Sun. If anyone wants to learn more about Let's Share the Sun, podcast 129, but you could also your website, obviously, www.letssharethesun.org. Also, that's where you can donate as well, which will have the link in the notes of the podcast. So you're looking for additional funds or time or equipment from the solar industry to help, or any industry really, right?
Yeah.
Or from donation purposes.
And then we'll get into some of the partners that are on the
Yeah.
Sorry to ask multiple questions.
So this is going to be our biggest Let's Share the Sun trip yet. We have 26 people joining on our Let's Share the Sun delegation, and then 12 ordained students joining as well, as we mentioned with NP Energy. So it's a mix of people, a lot of solar professionals, 5 people from what we can see joining. And then we have 2 people from our generation, which they actually donated $10,000, focusing specifically on O&M, which is very important for us at Let's Share the Sun because we want our products to be sustainable. We don't want to just go in and leave installations that leak. And it's very important that we have the installations, create partnerships with local people. That's why we're going to be working with Sol de Montane, which is the local solar company. That's more my background is in the international development space. I got my master's in social innovation, and I think there's history of charity products where you can still in and we do good work, but it doesn't actually have a long-term impact. So I think we're very intentional in having that long-term impact at Let's Share the Sun. So bringing it back to the O&M, I think having that $10,000 specifically for an O&M, we're very grateful to our generation having their expertise. Actually, I have on my app, I can check 6 of the homes that we did last year.
Well, that is pretty amazing. So you're saying you have like on your phone, basically the production, the facility and how it's doing. And
yeah, for 6 of the houses, I can see like how much power we're able to do.
Oh, that's amazing. And that's great to have that technology there, especially with O&M. First, it's reporting the issue, which obviously having an app, having that support and O&M is so important, which I feel like people leave out of the equation on private projects. So that's great, like for a nonprofit, especially the importance of people who need electricity and it can't go down. So that's great that our generation donated.
And I would add on top of the 10,000, the point that all of the beneficiaries are putting money into a fund that will complement that one, but unless they're skin in the game. Yeah. So there's a bit of training involved too. It's like these are expensive pieces of equipment that will benefit you a longer time if you take good care of them. The 10,000 is complementary with the local fund. We set up a contract and it's sold on Montana, such that they do deal. And then we're going to talk tomorrow with sold on Montana about how we're dividing up each of the crews. So it's going to be 4 crews, one or like 6 people with safety meetings on Chicago roads to make sure that they're on the year. And it's going to make sure all of the different leads. There'll be solar and highly representative with translators, with solar professionals, folks that are from the university and the students. And so we're excited to get that.
It's amazing that we're filming this and it's March 1st. And 10 days from now, the trip's happening. So I'm sure there's a lot of things that need to be done. And what's interesting to me is like how there's been a lot of positive press about Let's Share the Sun Foundation. Wasn't there the video, was it by NBC or created that video? Oh, it was NBC from last year, yes.
Yeah, that was my trip last year and see highlighted the watermelon pipeline. They're using a conversion from the gate, but
Yes.
so it was highlighted Lucas Barreto, who actually, it was highlighted his story, and since he's from Puerto Rico and he's Stanley and they're RB Maria. And then it's been show clips of us doing their solar installations and things. But Lucas actually interned with us past summer. He's a junior at Notre Dame, so studying engineer and Sandy out in church.
That's amazing. I remember it was a very impactful video, especially Lucas talking about what his family had to go through, the impacts of the hurricane, then the work that Let's Share the Sun Foundation's doing. So I think it was great.
There was another video we sort of was done by with McKinsey, and a shout out to the partnership with them. Their firm, that group of 5 or 6 includes President from Wood McKinsey. So their theme of transforming the way how the planet is one we resonate with entirely. And like Share the Sun. And we're looking at other locations, partner with Wood McKinsey, as they move that theme forward in their own company's growth and execution. So there's many partners from the solar industry, and we want to have an invitation for people to participate in the ways that make most sense immediate. Because that's really grown. There's VT Redder, he was David Warner, their parent company Malcolm.
Yeah, that's right. I talked to some of the big capital representatives coming.
So we have Solar Landscape as well. It's been really encouraging to see how the part of it because they listen to your podcast. So we're grateful to you for letting people know about what we're trying to do, because we receive calls on us every week. I heard about you guys. Sure.
Yeah, it's amazing how much the podcast, I know we talked about this before, Bill, like the podcast just in general, but specifically like the episode that we did with Let's Share the Sun, it really resonated with a lot of the solar community. I was actually very surprised with how many people were reaching out and asking me about what I knew about the organization. Obviously, some of these companies reached out to you directly and have donated. So, I know this is kind of like our last sort of pitch before the March 11th event. I know I've mentioned this before, but what's the best way if people want to donate or donate their time, money, or even like, for example, we were mentioning that people are donating like pallets of panels or the panels that they've used in the past. Can you talk more about, and we'll have obviously all this in the notes of the podcast, the 2 videos as well. I think it would be helpful just to clearly talk about it.
Yeah, the best way would be on our website. So leave the SREC page. It'll actually be my email address, which links to if they have good questions that they can donate right on that page for the contact.
And I saw like it's easy, like you could do it through PayPal, through Let's Share the Sun Foundation, or it's contribute right on letssharethesun.org.
Yeah.
Just to make it easy.
There's actually a specific page for the Puerto Rico trip too.
Oh, there is.
And if you don't have PayPal.
Oh, okay. That's great. So that's the donate. Oh, and you list the goal, and I see the money raised. So that's awesome. And then it has Wood McKenzie on it as well. So that's great and shows some of the work. So donorbox.org, and the link is contribute on Let's Share the Sun, which we'll clearly have on the notes as well. And obviously, they could reach out to you. We'll have your email as well. And I know you said on the website.
We also have Instagram page growing at Let's Share the Sun. And I started on Twitter, but I'm still working on it.
And I thought you had a LinkedIn page as well. So yeah, we'll have that as well. And then it would be great too to talk about the upcoming trips as well. I mean, is there anything we haven't covered on the Puerto Rico trip? But I know you have exciting stuff.
Yeah, I would just say that because they raised the bar from 25 homes to 39,
yes,
any financial donations are so welcome because we want to get those 39 homes done. We will continue to do annual trips to Puntas and to Puerto Rico for those that are interested in involvement beyond, this next 2-3 weeks. And so I think the 39 will get done by the summertime for sure. We have some students that are going to be going down there, some, of the university support that we talked about. As I mentioned the first time we were talking with you, we always look for the easy yes for people. Sure. But I think there's exciting growth happening at Share the Sun, and Bernie maybe want to talk about some of the countries that we're looking at now, the Americas and parts of the world.
And so we've just had our board meeting this past Sunday. So for all our projects, it has to be approved by the board of directors. So we have board meetings twice a year at the moment, but we're looking at having more. So very grateful to our board engagement. But our next project, I'm going to be traveling to Kenya and Uganda in June/July, which I'm very excited. That's
a very basic trip.
Yeah, I've been to Rwanda once, but yeah, I'm very excited. So it's actually a connection with Uganda through Notre Dame. It's called BLI. So they have a school there, and they have a specific focus on training in agriculture. So they train the students in their farm right on site. So it would be an initial site visit to see if it would be a potential project.
Sure.
And then Wood Mackenzie has a main office in Mexico City. So we had a connection through Wood Mackenzie, Mexico City, a meeting with Soltheon, which could be a potential project in Mexico.
As a leading authority in the solar industry, life gets very busy. In addition to traveling the world as a speaker and for my entrepreneurial ventures, I'm a son, friend, investor, and entrepreneur. And when it comes to delivering a great sounding show for my listeners, I choose Podcast Laundry. All I have to do is record and send, and the rest is done. They do the dirty work of podcasting for me. Yes, social media graphics, quotes, show notes, master editing, and much more. All I have to do is record. So if you're a busy podcaster like me with an engaged audience and want to free up your time to do more of what you love, like going to the gym or spending time with loved ones, go to podcastlaundry.com to schedule your consultation or call 347-871-8273. That's podcastlaundry.com or 347-871-8273.
But I would have emphasized every time I talk to Wood Mackenzie, they're like, it's been great to partner with you for the last year, and we would like to do under Touche. Sure. We envision going to Mexico and then going to other countries in the world that have needs. The cool thing about solar is it's happening in the poorest parts of the world. Now, currently, what's happening in most developed parts of the world, and the impact of those panels is so high in these poor communities.
Yes.
It's just changing the life of people. They have cell phones, which had some change for sure. But how do you power a cell phone if you don't have power?
Oh, yeah.
And so I just think it's a kind of topic that's resonating with so many people in the solar industry that listen to your podcast. And we want to make it an easy avenue in participation. So we're grateful for you talking about this. We might have actually the Secretary of Energy coming to Fiesta Solar the 18th March. It's inaugurating a microgrid in Ecuador. And if she's not able to be there, I think a very high-level person from you is going to represent. She's aware of our projects. I think the Biden administration has been incredibly supportive. Of course, we're just excited about this particular delegation, but continuing to grow the avenues of solar and enhance lives.
That's amazing work that you're doing. And can you talk about the partnership with Notre Dame and Notre Dame Energy? I think that's something important to talk about as well.
Both Phil and Nancy and myself went to Notre Dame undergrad, so I think that's been a key network as we've grown the organization. But Notre Dame Energy came and played. She was kind of the connection to Casa Pueblo.
Oh, okay.
None of the heads of Notre Dame Energy. So last year they came with the 12 students, but they're also coming this year with their spring break trip. So it's not just Lecce, the sun focused. They also go to San Juan.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Yes, it's actually a one credit course.
What they've done well, it points to another area of growth for my Shiva Sun, is they've gotten other parts of the Nardi community engaged. So there's a program called MD Bridge that's sending 4 students for 8 weeks in the summer to Casa Pueblo. And so they're all interested in solar. I did met with them last weekend during a board meeting. And we have students that are Villanova University that would like to do solar with the Shiva Sun, engineering students, so we're setting up some stuff with them in programs where they already have engagement in grassroots organizations in places like Peru. Same happened with Providence College. So I'm excited that we're facilitating more and more young people having good experiences early in their lives and careers, and it's transformative. And that it's another positive kind of vision of how.
As we know, the industry is growing exponentially, and we need a lot of young talent. This is a great opportunity for people to learn. And it's amazing, actually, Bernie, to think that you're exposed to solar insulation at 16, because I think you're probably one of the few people who had that access that early. So it's great.
It's been amazing to see on solars. When I was a kid, solar was first becoming big. We had a game where as a family. I mean, none of that, but like if we saw a solar panel, like as we were driving, my dad would give us $1
It's very hard to drive safely.
Yeah, way more than you for sure.
And yeah, very expensive. So recess.
It's not the game now. But it's amazing. It shows you. And you see it from a young age, from how old are you at the time, 16 to now, it's amazing. Even myself, I mean, pretty much like all my experience has been renewable energy and energy. And I have like 15 years of experience. And that's considered a lot in the industry. Like you're an old timer, which is pretty funny to me because I feel like I have a lot more time. But that's amazing to hear. And what also I found very interesting was the Notre Dame alumni connections. Not just within John Moran, who went to the trip last year. He's also a Notre Dame alum. Also, he's from Wood Mackenzie. And then you both were nice enough to invite me to the Notre Dame game where they actually presented the video that you talked about with Lucas. And it was just interesting to me to see it, how strong like the Notre Dame network was and how passionate people were when there was that panel talking about Let's Share the Sun Foundation and how passionate the Energy group after the presentation, how passionate they were about your nonprofit. So it was really interesting for me to see.
There were about 40 students in that classroom, and in the 18 to 20 year age range, there were three of us talking, Luke, John, Restell, as solar professionals. Imagine having the same age kids on the top of roofs in March with the chance to talk to 46 solar professionals that have taken a week out of their lives on the for-profit side to give back. And the questions are going to be, can I do this with my career? I am a firm believer that our industry will be led by these young people because we're still at really stage of the ramp up. And they have agility, intelligence, and they get the passion by going on shifts to say, hey, I might want to become an engineer that's focused on software, or I'm a finance person focused on finding renewable energy, lowering the cost of power for people and improving the environment. And so it's a really exciting week.
Yeah, definitely. And is there anything that we haven't spoke about with Let's Share the Sun Foundation that we should know about? I think like it's been pretty comprehensive, everything I think that we've spoken about. You know what I thought was interesting? I know this is, when did you determine to focus on a women's shelter that are recovering from domestic violence? Is that something new this year?
Yeah, that was a development from Wood Mackenzie. I think coming out of the trip last year, I spoke with Luke and he wanted to have a specific focus on women empowerment. And we actually were hoping to do the trip coincide with International Women's.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
This has been great. And then speaking actually with Puerto Ricans during COVID, sadly, domestic violence, the rates increase.
Not just in Puerto Rico, pretty much all over the world, but yes.
Just it's in Puerto Rico, staggering, I guess. So that's how it kind of came together. And then we talked with our connections at Casa Pueblo, who let us be introduced with Casa de Julia, the one we'll do in Ponce.
Oh, Ponce, sure.
Great in outside.
Oh, okay.
Another line in growth that we mentioned in our first podcast, Benoy, that was recent retirees. So we have Janet Joseph, retired from Nigeria. We have Joe Martens, his wife, Kathleen Martens, people that have a lifetime of experience and incredible Rolodexes. So amongst the people that they introduced us to was the one that was chief of staff to Michelle Obama at the White House, who's now the senior VP of communications to Baco Popular. So there's a concept with Baco Popular going on in these years, the next couple of months, where they like that we're looking at domestic violence centers, and they're saying, how can we have solar on every domestic violence center? So their financial resources can be focused on our core mission on helping people get their lives together after they've had these treatments. So it's really kind of moving to think that we can get those kinds of supporters. And I would say that a subset of your listeners are people that like be in that life stage. And we have open doors because really, Janet Joseph probably reviewed thousands of grants in her years at Minnesota. She's going to help Let's Share the Sun grow by bringing her talents to bear, because she wants to see this kind of a vision have maximum impact in the world and contribute her skills and time towards helping make that happen. So we always look for the easy yes to get people. Well, I said that before, and I think that that's worked really well to get people like Janet, Kathleen, and Joe to say, hey, I'm going to help make this happen.
Yeah, that's another great point as well. I mean, recent retirees do listen to the podcast. So obviously, they have your contact information, and anyone who's interested in contributing should definitely reach out.
We got the young student population. For that. People in the middle of their careers, it's great to take a week out and do some good. And then folks that have moved on to second mountain, as they're calling it, that can contribute their time, talent, and experience, relationships. Paul Walker.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm on a trip with us.
Yeah, definitely. It's my first trip. You know what I'll do after the trip? I can talk about my experiences about it more, because John Moran came back from this first trip last March and was raving about how great it was. And then obviously wanted to get you on the podcast. And I'm really excited because Puerto Rico, I've spent a lot of time there and has a special place in my heart. I know a lot of people there, and you guys are making a positive impact. So that's great.
Well, thank you for kind of joining the cause. I think you've been doing a lot of good in your solar career, and you really helped the industry grow with your podcast mission and Solar Maverick. We're just delighted that you'll be on this trip. And yeah, I'd love that third one to be about how great the trip is.
Oh, for sure. I will be actively interviewing, videoing, and obviously getting on the roofs. It's an amazing organization. When I spend a lot of time with Let's Share the Sun Foundation, all of you are very passionate about what you're doing. You could see it. And it's amazing for me to see from last trip to this trip, just the exponential growth and how that's going to continue over the next 5 to 10 years. And you're going to be talking about 10 to 20 countries. Yes, it's exciting because it's really changing the world in a positive way and creating economic opportunity and helping people for most in needs. Let's Share the Sun Foundation.org. We'll have that in the notes of the podcast. I really appreciate Bernie and Bill, your time today and what you're doing. Keep doing the great work. And the trip is March 11th to 18th. There's still time to donate. Go to letsharethesun.org. I'll be like John, like every time I talk to him for 3 months, he was talking about the trip, how excited he was. And you know what they see is how passionate about it and how he really believes that it's making a difference. And that's why, like, I've seen him at conferences talk about Let's Share the Sun Foundation to get people interested. And I mean, he's great at what he does, but also you could tell like he's really passionate and believes in the cause. And he's a great ambassador for what you're trying to do.
Yeah, no, he's great. He'll be up on the rooftops at the night every night with song fest. And could tell that he was raised by Laura, who's got that gift of gab. And we stay up late, tell good stories, have fun. I think they're bonding experiences. I think you're going to find out just going.
Oh, for sure. And one thing too, we forgot to talk about, in business, relationships are everything. A trip like this, you really build strong bonds with everyone who's coming in the group. Like even just that brief trip that I went to Notre Dame with you guys, I mean, I felt like a lot closer connection because we were able to spend a lot of time. And even with John, I basically stayed at his friend's timeshare. We spent like 3 whole days together. So really built a stronger friendship from that business. It's about adding value, and not just business, but nonprofit, and also like relationships.
The nice thing of a 3 to 5 day trip, the solar installation is something very tangible that is done by everybody. And then you just build relationships with that. With Wood Mackenzie, we're actually talking about like strategic executive team retreats where most successful companies take that time out.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's just at a resort. Sure, no, we could do that, but if you add on 2 or 3 days and you do this activity together,
oh, definitely, for sure,
and full-time endeavors in some industries. So we're excited about building ones.
Yeah,
and others that might be interested.
I think people forgot during COVID about team building and doing those activities together and how that actually enhances the collaboration because people feel like a stronger connection. And this is like a perfect sort of avenue to do that.
And if you're shy about getting up on a roof to put panels on, we have a muralist that's going to have 5 people every day where the walls entering.
Oh, that's good to explain that.
It's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
You go to Casa Pueblo's done a terrific job of making solar something that's a beautiful part of nature, because we're enhancing nature by powering our planet with sure sun as opposed to the non-renewable kind of fossil fuels that are kind of been so last 100 and some odd years.
Yeah, that's a great point to mention. Specifically, I know there are people who are scared of going on the roofs so that's great to know that they could do other things.
We're going to take a daily trip into the forest. For those that want to do that, you can rotate in. It's actually going to be a pretty complex team division where you sign up every day for activity that you'd like to do.
We're going to be visiting an orphanage as well.
Oh, that's great.
I think one thing last year was like talking to the people that were installing the houses, that the people that lived there. I think that was very attractive to people. And they're like literally so welcoming and like gave you so much food every day when we went there. And very hospitable, like the most hospitable people I've met.
That when Mackenzie's going to be going at those houses to see how's the solar been, is also experience how much money is it, how is this enhanced your life. So it's going to be, that'll be another fun team trip every day up in the mountains to the houses that we installed last year.
And basically, for people to know, this is like, there'll be multiple trips in different locations, and it's an annual thing. Usually for Puerto Rico, it's basically coincides in March with the Reneu Energy Spring Trip. Is that?
Secretary Granholm was just on the island. We support this town, trending our own town solar. She knows the microgrid that's happening here and who does and Casa Pound's work and the shit.
Oh, that's exciting.
So it's good to see a town like this size that's going to go all solar. Because the rest of the world will say, hey, if they can do it. And with better storage, lowering costs, I think you're going to see this happen very rapidly.
Oh, for sure. Well, this has been a great interview. I appreciate both of your time today. And thank you again for being on the Solar Maverick podcast.
Thank you so much for having us.
Anytime.
See you in Puerto Rico.
See you in 10 days.
Thanks for listening to the Solar Maverick podcast. The Solar Maverick podcast is brought to you by Reneu Energy. We're a solar development and consulting firm. If you believe that this podcast is adding value to you, please give us a 5-star review and share with those that you think could benefit from this information. Please email all questions, suggestions, and feedback to info@reneuenergy.com. That's info@reneuenergy.com. The Solar Maverick podcast is produced by Podcast Laundry and executive produced by Benoy Thanjan and Kevin Y. Brown.